Images can be broadly classified into two different categories. On one side, you've got rasters, and on the other side, you've got vectors. Let's start with rasters, and we'll illustrate this with an example by drawing a square. The end result is the same. It's just going to be a square. We're going to color it in the middle. And for a vector, we are also going to do the same thing. This is also going to be filled in. Now, these store the same image in a different way. With rasters, it stores each of the pixel values. These would be empty, and then you'd have one empty and then an orange, followed by a few more oranges and then an empty. So basically, if you had to look at an unoptimized file, it would look something like this. You'd have a few empty squares, and then you'd have your orange square, and then another few empty squares, and so on. And these squares, this would actually be represented by a color. So I don't know the exact hex values for these colors. Perhaps you'd use white for the empty squares, FFF, and so it'd be the same here, 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 and here. And for orange, you could probably check the color picker, but it doesn't give the color. Okay, not very important. It's just some pixel values. Let's go FAC, same here, same here. So this stores the actual pixel values, or the color for the pixels. With a vector, it's a bit different. Instead of storing the individual pixels, it rather uses a function to recreate this. So one way we could describe this is by maybe drawing a bunch of lines. First thing is we'll go to, let's say this is our origin. So we'll say this is 0, 0, and perhaps we should use a different color. So we're going to say this is 0, 0, and our first step is to move to 1, 1, and then we want to create a line to 1, 4. Yeah, it would be 4, 1. Starts with X and then Y. And then you'd want to create another line to 4, 4, and then another line to 1, 4, and so on. So you're essentially creating a bunch of lines, and then you can specify the fill color and stroke color for recreating the square. Now, in both cases, we've got the same result. So which one is better? Which one should you prefer? The answer to that question is it very much depends. The advantage of using vector files is that it is quite optimized in terms of file size, because you're not storing each of these pixels, you're only storing the function to recreate it. So there's much less things to store. And it's also infinitely scalable, because you can just recreate this. You can zoom in and out as much as you desire. Whereas in the case of rasters, the resolution is limited. If you scale down, you won't lose quality, but if you scale up, then it will become pixelated. You can see each of these individual pixels. So that's one difference. The other difference is, well, the other determining factor is the actual source of the image. For example, if you're taking an image from a camera, you're almost always going to end up with a raster, because it's very difficult to create a vector-based image for complex geometries. That's not to say that it's impossible. You can do it, but the way that cameras work, it's way easier to store pixel values, And that's why you'll see file types like PNG and JPEG when you're taking images with the camera. On the other hand, if you use vectors, you'll see a lot of SVGs. That's the main one, stands for scalable vector graphics. There are a few more, but this is what you'll predominantly use. And this is great for logos as well as mapping data, which was quite surprising. But if you are using a map, for example, if you use QGIS, it allows you to export layers as vector data, so you can scale it and modify it according to your needs. It's much more flexible.